Queen Camilla's ex-husband has finally spoken, and what he revealed changes everything. Andrew Parker Bowles claims Camilla was never meant for one man, exposing her secret life of powerful lovers and scandalous affairs. His words reopen royal wounds and reveal the truth behind the woman who now wears the crown. Andrew Parker. Bowles breaks his silence. For years, Andrew Parker Bowles kept quiet about his high-profile marriage to Camilla Shand, whom he wed in 1973. A respected British Army officer, he carried the public image of calm, discipline, and dignity, even while rumors swirled around his wife's closeness with Prince Charles. But now, decades later, Andrew has finally broken his silence, and what he's saying is casting a dark shadow over Camilla's carefully managed royal legacy. Close friends say Andrew recently confided a blunt truth. Camilla was never meant for one man. The words shocked those who heard them. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was a direct hit to the image of the woman who now wears a crown. The man who once endured the humiliation of watching his wife entangle herself with the future king is no longer protecting her reputation. Even during their marriage, which lasted until 1995, Camilla was tied to other powerful men in London's elite. Andrew reportedly tolerated her emotional affair with Charles, viewing their own union as more arrangement than love. Their open secrets became common knowledge among Britain's upper class, but were never acknowledged publicly. Until now. Andrew's revelation not only reopens old wounds, but reframes the story the palace wants the world to believe. Camilla's journey from mistress to queen consort in 2022 is now being scrutinized through a much colder lens, one shaped by ambition, control, and a lifetime of scandal. To truly grasp Andrew's warning, we must return to the very beginning, Camilla's wild years in 1960s London. Long before Charles or crowns, she was already a name in elite circles. Her influence over powerful men didn't start with royalty. It started with parties, whispers, and a reputation that never quite disappeared. The socialite years. In the late 1960s, Camilla Shand became a fixture of London's upper-class nightlife. At just 22 years old in 1969, she had established herself as a glamorous presence at parties hosted by aristocrats, diplomats, and army officers. Friends recall how she could captivate entire rooms, blending wit and flirtation with an easy familiarity that made her stand out. Her companions were rarely ordinary men. They were members of Britain's elite, men of wealth, power, and connections. Camilla's circle of admirers included army officers who served alongside Andrew Parker Bowles, foreign diplomats assigned to London between 1968 to 1970, and wealthy landowners from the countryside. This created an aura of scandal, as she became known as someone who was always available to men of influence. Several sources describe her as fun and flirtatious, the kind of woman who thrived in a world where secrets were currency. Her reputation as an it girl was cemented by these whispers. Unlike many young women of her time, Camilla leaned into her independence. By 1970, she had cultivated an image that was daring compared to her peers. She was unafraid of affairs, unbothered by gossip, and keen to surround herself with men of stature. In this, she contrasted sharply with future royal figures like Princess Diana, who would later embody innocence and vulnerability. Camilla represented something more dangerous, a woman who wielded her charm with deliberate intent. This reputation, though exciting in her youth, would later haunt her. When she entered into her affair with Prince Charles, many recalled her earlier years as proof that she was not a woman of restraint. The stories of her socialite past gave critics ammunition to paint her as morally unfit for the role she would eventually assume. What began as whispers in 1969 parties would become the fuel for scandals that defined her adult life. By the early 1970s, Camilla's reputation as a socialite was firmly established. Yet, none of her connections proved as pivotal or as destructive as her bond with Prince Charles. When the two met in 1970 at a polo match, it was more than chance. It was the beginning of a relationship that would shake the monarchy. Even marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973 could not extinguish the affair that followed. Camilla's socialite past merged with her future role as Charles's most enduring secret. The affair that never ended. Camilla Shand met Prince Charles in 1970 at a polo match at Windsor Great Park. Both were in their early 20s, with Charles just 21 years old and freshly celebrated as the heir to the throne. Their chemistry was immediate, and those who witnessed the encounter recall how Charles seemed captivated. Within weeks, their relationship blossomed into a discreet affair, one that carried the potential to reshape the royal family's history. The shocking detail, however, was that their relationship overlapped with other commitments. By 1971, Charles was frequently away on naval duties, yet the pair continued to correspond, while Camilla deepened ties with Andrew Parker Bowles. Their bond became infamous because, even before her marriage in 1973, Camilla had already given her loyalty to Charles. This blurred timeline suggested a betrayal of both her future husband and the expectations placed upon Charles as a royal heir. Despite Charles marrying Lady Diana Spencer in 1981 and Camilla remaining with Andrew Parker Bowles until their divorce in 1995, the affair never ended. Palace insiders claim it spanned over 25 years, making Camilla one of the most notorious mistresses in modern history. Even when Diana gave birth to Prince William in 1982 and Prince Harry in 1984, Camilla's presence was felt. Diana herself revealed in 1991 letters that she always knew Charles's heart belonged to another. Andrew Parker Bowles, remarkably, was said to tolerate the situation. While he pursued his own affairs, including one with Princess Anne in the 1970s, he reportedly accepted Camilla's bond with Charles. This arrangement reinforced the idea that their marriage was less about devotion and more about appearances. For the public, however, the affair confirmed what Diana would later describe so powerfully in 1995. There were three of us in this marriage. The reality of Camilla's restless desires. The Charles-Camilla affair became the defining scandal of the 1980s and 1990s, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and controversy. What had begun in 1970 as a romantic connection. During the mid-1970s, Andrew Parker Bowles was rumored to have had an affair with Princess at a polo match, had grown into a shadow that haunted Diana and destabilized the monarchy. Yet, this was not the end of Camilla's unconventional love life. Behind her marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles, there lay another truth. The arrangement was widely described as an open marriage, where infidelity was tolerated and expected. Camilla's open marriage with Andrew Parker Bowles. Friends close to Camilla and Andrew Parker Bowles often described their marriage, which lasted from 1973 to 1995, a full 22 years, as an open marriage. In the aristocratic circles of London, this was unusual but not unheard of. Couples with deep social ties sometimes tolerated infidelity as long as it did not disrupt appearances. For Andrew and Camilla, this arrangement meant both pursued their own romantic lives while remaining publicly united. What shocked outsiders was how openly this dynamic was tolerated. Anne, the daughter of Queen Elizabeth II. The connection was whispered about within royal circles and added to the tangled web of relationships surrounding the family. Meanwhile, Camilla's own attachment to Prince Charles only deepened after his return from naval service in 1974. Their emotional and physical bond never fully broke, regardless of their other commitments. This reinforced the impression that their marriage was built on mutual indulgence, not fidelity. The open arrangement fit into the high society culture of 1970s London, where affairs were often brushed aside as part of elite life. Yet, for ordinary people watching the royal family, it looked like moral collapse. Rumors spread that Camilla was not just Charles's confidant, but had a string of other lovers, ranging from army officers to wealthy aristocrats. Within the walls of their marriage, such behavior was tolerated, but outside, it drew judgment and disdain. For Camilla, the arrangement served a strategic purpose. It provided her the freedom to maintain her emotional bond with Charles while shielding herself behind the respectability of marriage. To critics, this was proof of calculation, that she was willing to manipulate her marriage into a cover for her desires. For Andrew, it meant enduring a wife whose heart was never truly his, a burden that became more difficult as Charles and Camilla's affair gained worldwide notoriety in the 1980s. By the end of the 1980s, the arrangement between Andrew and Camilla was no longer just an open secret. It was the foundation for one of Britain's greatest scandals. As Charles and Camilla's bond grew stronger, the world learned of their affair in excruciating detail. In 1989, leaked phone calls exposed their intimacy, and Camilla became infamous. Branded the other woman, her reputation as Britain's most notorious mistress was sealed, setting the stage for public humiliation that would follow her for decades. The reputation of a mistress. For decades, Camilla carried the label of Britain's most infamous mistress. The turning point came in 1989, when the notorious Tampon-Gate tapes were leaked. These recordings revealed Prince Charles and Camilla engaging in late-night phone conversations, discussing intimate fantasies. The scandal erupted across Britain, and the term "other woman" clung to Camilla like a permanent scar. For many, she was no longer just a private figure, but the embodiment of betrayal and impropriety. The situation worsened when Princess Diana gave her explosive 1995 Panorama interview. In front of more than 22 million viewers, Diana admitted, "There were 3 of us in this marriage." With those 9 words, she cemented Camilla's image as the destroyer of Diana's happiness. For the public, the pain of Diana, Britain's beloved princess, became inseparable from Camilla's existence. It wasn't just an affair. It was a wound that scarred the monarchy forever. Even years later, the public struggled to forgive Camilla. Opinion polls from the 1990s consistently showed her as one of the least liked figures associated with the royal family. In 1994, a Gallup poll found that nearly 70% of Britons believed Charles should never marry Camilla. Tabloids branded her with names like the Rottweiler, a cruel reminder of how deeply she was despised. For Diana's supporters, Camilla was not just a rival. She was the source of the princess's heartbreak. The weight of being branded the mistress followed Camilla even after Diana's tragic death in 1997. Though she eventually married Charles in 2005, the memory of her role in breaking Diana's marriage never disappeared. To this day, many critics argue that the monarchy could never truly cleanse itself of the scandal, because Camilla's darkest label was permanently tied to her. She was not simply Charles's wife. She was the woman who had once undermined Britain's most beloved royal couple. The mistress label haunted Camilla long after Diana's passing, but whispers continued that Charles was not her only romance. Behind the headlines of the 1990s, stories emerged of a wider web of lovers stretching across decades. These were not anonymous affairs. They involved bankers, polo players, and foreign dignitaries. Even Andrew Parker Bowles himself reportedly confirmed her restless nature. If Camilla's darkest scandal tied her to Charles, her rumored list of other lovers painted an even more damning portrait of her ambition. The web of lovers beyond Charles. Though Camilla's affair with Prince Charles dominated headlines, insiders suggested it was not her only relationship during her 22-year marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles. From the late 1970s through the 1980s, Camilla was linked to multiple figures within Britain's elite. Whispers connected her to wealthy bankers who controlled old money fortunes, as well as polo players who moved in Charles's sporting circle. Foreign dignitaries attending London society events were also rumored to have caught her attention. Andrew Parker Bowles himself reportedly admitted to friends that Camilla was restless and unfaithful. Unlike Diana, who was often portrayed as naive, Camilla was never underestimated. She was calculating in her relationships, building connections that extended beyond romance. These affairs created the impression that she viewed love not just as personal, but as a tool of influence. Each new connection broadened her access to wealth, power, and prestige within London's closed circles. The rumors reinforced her image as someone who used love as leverage. For instance, during the 1980s, stories linked her to a prominent City of London banker who later became involved in funding royal charities. Though never confirmed, the suggestion that Camilla blurred the lines between intimacy and opportunity created unease. Similarly, polo gatherings in 1982 and 1984, where she was spotted alongside Charles and other aristocrats, fueled gossip that she was simultaneously entertaining multiple companions. This web of alleged lovers added a darker layer to her already controversial reputation. It suggested that Charles was not her only obsession, but part of a wider pattern. By the early 1990s, critics claimed that her charm was less about affection and more about strategy. Whether these stories were exaggerated or not, they fed the public belief that Camilla was unlike Diana. She was not innocent, but purposeful, shaping her life and power through her relationships. Transition, 80 words. As the 1990s unfolded, Camilla's image as the mistress of Charles and the socialite with many lovers converged into a single reputation: dangerous, ambitious, and untrustworthy. For Andrew Parker Bowles, this reality grew impossible to ignore. Their marriage of 22 years collapsed in 1995, with both sides citing infidelity. Though they remained cordial, Andrew later admitted he knew what she was from the very beginning. His resentment and regret would eventually expose even more about the darker side of Camilla. Andrew Parker Bowles's resentment and regret. By the late 1990s, Andrew Parker Bowles had settled into a quieter life following his divorce from Camilla in 1995 after 22 years of marriage. Yet, those close to him report he carried deep resentment. To friends, he allegedly confessed that he had always known what she was. The statement suggested he had recognized Camilla's unfaithfulness and ambition from the start. Even so, he endured decades of public humiliation as her bond with Charles grew stronger, overshadowing his own marriage. Andrew reportedly admitted that Camilla was more loyal to Prince Charles than to him throughout their union. While he accepted the reality of their open marriage, the imbalance cut deep. For Camilla, Charles was not just a lover, but the central figure in her life, even during her marriage. This dynamic left Andrew feeling used, as though his purpose had been to provide her with a respectable name and cover, while her true loyalties lay elsewhere. When the divorce was finalized in March 1995, infidelity was cited on both sides. Andrew soon remarried in 1996 to Rosemary Pittman, but friends say the scars of his first marriage lingered. Camilla, meanwhile, stepped into a new chapter of her life, where her relationship with Charles became more public. Andrew's cordiality in later years masked the bitterness of having played second to the heir to the throne for more than 2 decades. His later revelations expose Camilla's darker side, her ability to hide ambition behind charm. What Andrew endured was more than marital betrayal. It was a calculated strategy that allowed Camilla to retain social respectability while pursuing her real desires. For historians, Andrew's resentment provides key evidence that Camilla's rise was no accident. It was the result of choices made long before her coronation as Queen Consort in 2022. Andrew Parker Bowles's candid remarks cast a shadow over Camilla's carefully crafted public image. His bitterness painted her not as a victim, but as an ambitious manipulator who put loyalty to Charles above her own marriage. Yet, the consequences of her affairs extended beyond Andrew's pain. No figure was more affected than Princess Diana, whose marriage to Charles collapsed under the weight of Camilla's presence. To understand the scale of betrayal, one must revisit how Diana's tragedy was shaped by Camilla. The shadow over Diana. For Princess Diana, Camilla was the ghost that haunted her entire marriage to Prince Charles. From the moment Diana married Charles in 1981, she sensed she was competing with someone else. By 1982, with the birth of Prince William, Diana hoped motherhood would bind her closer to her husband. Instead, Camilla's influence only grew. Palace insiders recall Diana's devastation upon discovering that Charles's emotional bond with Camilla had never ended, even during the happiest moments of their family life. The pain became public in 1992, when Andrew Morton's book, Diana, Her True Story, revealed her struggles. Diana admitted she always felt like a third wheel in her own marriage. This was confirmed when the infamous Tampongate tapes of 1989 were leaked, exposing Charles and Camilla's private late-night conversations. For Diana, the humiliation was unbearable. She reportedly told friends she felt betrayed on every level. These revelations cemented Camilla as the symbol of royal betrayal. By the time of Diana's famous 1995 Panorama interview, her heartbreak was laid bare before millions. Her admission, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," became one of the most quoted lines in modern royal history. It was a direct reference to Camilla's ever-present role. The world rallied to Diana's side, casting her as the innocent victim, and Camilla as the calculating mistress. Public sympathy for Diana skyrocketed, while Camilla became one of the most despised figures in Britain. Even after Diana's tragic death in August 1997, Camilla remained tied to her memory. For the public, Camilla represented not just a mistress, but the source of Diana's unhappiness. This association never disappeared. To this day, critics argue that Camilla's role in Diana's heartbreak defines her legacy. Andrew Parker Bowles's recent words only reinforce what Diana had already feared, that Camilla's ambition and infidelity were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Diana's shadow made it nearly impossible for Camilla to gain acceptance. Yet, the monarchy eventually made a decision that stunned the world. Despite decades of scandal, Camilla was rehabilitated into public life after Diana's death. From 2000 onward, Charles slowly introduced her to official duties. In 2005, they finally married. Queen Elizabeth II never attended the ceremony, signaling her disapproval. Still, the crown legitimized Camilla's place. This acceptance, however, came with controversy that continues to haunt the monarchy today: the crown's controversial acceptance. After Princess Diana's death in 1997, the royal family faced one of its gravest crises. Public anger toward Prince Charles and Camilla was overwhelming, with approval ratings dropping below 30% in some polls. Yet Charles remained determined to rehabilitate Camilla's image. By 2000, she began making tentative public appearances alongside him. Despite protests, Charles presented her as his partner, signaling that she was here to stay. The move marked a turning point in the monarchy's handling of scandal. The process was gradual but deliberate. By 2002, during Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee, Camilla had been carefully reintroduced into the public eye. The Queen herself, however, avoided acknowledging her. It wasn't until 2005 that Charles and Camilla married in a civil ceremony at Windsor Guildhall. The Queen refused to attend, instead hosting a reception later. Her absence was a subtle but powerful message of disapproval. Still, the marriage made Camilla a permanent fixture of royal life. Despite the marriage, controversy persisted. Opinion polls from 2005 to 2010 showed consistent divides. While Charles and Camilla's approval ratings improved, nearly 40% of Britons said they could never accept her as queen. To many, Camilla was a reminder of Diana's suffering. Her image remained one of survival, not admiration. Even in 2022, when she was crowned queen consort, debate erupted about whether the title should have been granted at all. The crown's acceptance of Camilla highlighted a painful truth. Tradition sometimes bowed to personal desire. While Charles's marriage to Camilla was legitimized, it could not erase the scandals of the past. Her rise from mistress to queen consort became one of the most controversial transformations in royal history. For critics, it symbolized the monarchy's willingness to compromise values for the sake of appearances, leaving lasting doubts about its integrity. Camilla's acceptance into the monarchy did not erase her past. Instead, it forced the public to confront uncomfortable questions about ambition, morality, and power. Andrew Parker Bowles's revelations today reopen those wounds, reminding the world that Camilla's story was never just about love. It was about strategy. As queen consort, she may hold a crown, but her reputation remains fragile. The final question is whether her past will shape the monarchy's future, or if history will judge her too harshly. What Camilla's past means for the monarchy's future. Andrew Parker Bowles's recent words reopen one of the monarchy's darkest chapters. By admitting that Camilla was never meant for one man, he reminded the world of her string of lovers and her reputation as Britain's most notorious mistress. For the public, it raised the question, how can a monarchy rooted in duty and morality survive when its queen consort embodies scandal? This tension strikes at the very heart of the monarchy's legitimacy in the 21st century. Camilla's history contrasts sharply with the images of Princess Diana and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Diana, born in 1961, symbolized innocence and vulnerability, while Catherine, who married William in 2011, represents loyalty, elegance, and stability. Against them, Camilla appears calculating, ambitious, and morally compromised. This comparison ensures that her reputation will always remain complicated, regardless of her official title. Public opinion surveys in 2023 showed nearly 35% of Britons still refused to accept her as queen. The monarchy's future may depend on how history reconciles Camilla's past. Prince William, set to inherit the throne, is determined to modernize the institution. Yet Camilla's presence as his stepmother complicates the narrative. For many, the crown will always carry the shadow of Diana's betrayal. Andrew Parker Bowles's comments reinforce the idea that Camilla's reign is not built on tradition, but on the ruins of scandal, ambition, and manipulation. Ultimately, Camilla's darkest secret, that she was never just Charles's lover, but a mistress to many, will haunt her reign. The monarchy may present her as a stabilizing queen consort, but history will remember her differently. For future generations, she may serve as a cautionary tale of how personal ambition can reshape even the most sacred of institutions. The crown may survive her, but her legacy will remain forever divided. Camilla's story is not just about one woman, but about the monarchy itself. Her journey from socialite in the 1960s to queen consort in 2022 proves how scandal and ambition can alter history. Yet, Andrew Parker Bowles's revelations force us to ask, at what cost? The monarchy stands today, but the echoes of betrayal, affairs, and broken hearts will forever shape its image. Camilla may hold a crown, but the shadows of her past will never truly fade.